Well, good morning. We're glad you're with us this morning. If you have your Bibles, I want to go ahead and encourage you to open up to Exodus chapter 20. We're going to be there here in just a couple minutes. First and foremost, as you probably noticed, many of you who are regular attenders with us, this area right here is empty. Okay, typically on any given Sunday morning, we have 30 to 35 high school and junior high kids that are sitting in this general vicinity right here. This morning at about 7:50, we had 32 high school students and sponsors that are on their way to Joplin, Missouri for CIY Move. And so we're really excited about that. We're really excited about what is going to happen this week for them. We've been praying a lot for them. And so I want to encourage you to continue to do that. Pray for them. There's a list of their names in the bulletin. And we would just love for you to take some time. Pray for them as they're gone this week. Ask if there's a name that jumps off the page at you, just pray for that student or that adult. We're really excited to take that many students this week, and so just be in prayer for them. And so because of that, this is going to be a little weird because they usually talk back quite a bit, not in a bad way. So, but they're gone, so just pray for them this week, okay? We spent the last few weeks studying these 10 commandments, or God's top 10. That God gave the Israelites as they were wandering in the wilderness. And just for a quick reminder, I want to remind you, these are broken down into two different sections, okay? Jesus talked about this in the New Testament, and he said that the commands basically boil down to two things, and they are this: to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And does anybody know what the second was? To love your neighbor as yourself. That's what Jesus said, okay? And so what Jesus simply is saying is this, is those 10 commandments that I gave the Israelites, those top 10, that's how you show who I am to the world, is you love God and you love others. That's the basis for these top 10, okay? And so we are all about having loving relationships with God and with others. But we also need to remember, while these are a great moral standard, I just want to make you very aware of something. By doing these things, they don't earn you your salvation. These are a picture. These are you showing the world that you believe in Jesus and you follow Him by following these. Our salvation was earned for us on the cross. And so it's not a measuring stick. Our salvation is not earned by our actions. So last week we talked about the command right over here on the wall, don't steal. And we talked about that stealing is not just taking something from someone that doesn't belong to you. It's about being dishonest in the way that we handle situations. We talked about this. It's not about just taking property. You can steal a person's joy. Anybody steal their joy before? You're super excited about something, somebody comes up and they like poop on your parade, and you're like, golly, just no fun, okay? You ever had anybody steal your peace? You got a peace about a situation and they come and talk to you, and then all of a sudden you start to worry? They've stolen your peace. See, the truth of the matter is we can steal a lot of things. Stealing, and the thing we learned about this last week is this: stealing is not yours, stealing what is not yours is not only harmful, but it is sin. Give to God what belongs to Him and be an example of honesty. All right? We shouldn't steal something that doesn't belong to us. So I want to ask you a question today before we jump in. If I were to ask you what one of the biggest problems in today's society was, what do you think? Somebody give me some ideas. What do you think the biggest problem in society is? Cell phones? Okay. Okay? Somebody else. Huh? Respect. Okay? Knowing God's word. Okay, what else? I'm sorry? Facebook, yeah. Okay? What else? Not helping your neighbors? Okay. One of the biggest problems we have today, and it kind of all boils down into this, is this: dishonesty. Dishonesty is one of the biggest problems that we have in today's culture. A USA Today poll found that 56% of Americans teach honesty to their children, okay? I would probably say only 56% of people taught honesty to their children. A Lewis Harris poll turned up this distressing fact that 65% of high school students would cheat on an important exam if they could. Recently, a noted physician appeared on a network news talk show and he proclaimed this. He says, lying is an important part of social life. And children who are unable to do it are children who may have developmental problems. So what he's saying is if you don't know how to lie, that's a problem. There's also a list that we as Americans use as, we'll just call them the American fib. Okay? They're not really a lie, but kinda. You ready? There are things like this. The check is in the mail. You ever heard that one before? I'll start my diet tomorrow. I'm not ever saying that again. We service what we sell. Yeah, a few of you like that one. Give me your number and the doctor will call you right back. Money cheerfully refunded. You ever had anything like that happen? This is one of my favorites. One size fits all. No, it doesn't. Because if it fits that skinny person and it fits me, it's not going to look near as good. Either way. This offer is limited to the first 100 people who call in. Your luggage isn't lost, it's just misplaced. Leave your resume on file, or leave your resume with us and we'll put it on file. This is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. I just need 5 minutes of your time. Anybody ever had that one? I need 5 minutes of your time 2 hours later. Your table will be ready in a few minutes. The dentist, open wide. This won't hurt a bit. Let's have lunch sometime. It's not the money, it's the principle. No, it's the money. Be honest, right? But the truth of the matter is this. All of these things, whether we want to admit it or not, they're simply one thing. They are lies. Because it's not the truth. They may be seen as what we like to call white lies. Anybody ever said a statement like that? Well, that's just a little white lie. Anybody ever told one of those? Ooh, now we're getting real, okay? Austin O'Malley said this. Those who think it's permissible to tell white lies soon become colorblind. Let me read that one again. It may take you a minute. Those who think it's permissible to tell white lies soon become colorblind. In fact, Jesus talked about falsifying something many times in the Gospels. Do you remember when he was talking to the Pharisees? Do you remember what he called them? He called them a bunch of whitewashed tombs. Because on the outside it looks really, really, really good. You look clean and perfect. But what's inside of a tomb? Death. The last time I checked, they didn't have a lot of cleaning parties inside tombs. Or parties in general inside of a tomb. What is inside is what matters. And the same could be said about white lies. Sometimes it may seem like it's no big deal, but the truth of the matter is it's still a lie. I heard a story of a church, and they had just started, and they were kind of getting their momentum, and people in the church were very, very, very generous. They began to give everything that they had to other people so that these people could have their needs met. They began to supply food and clothes, and they provide housing, and people began to sell some of their possessions to be able to provide for the needs of these people. And it was a great thing. The church began to grow. People began to come to know Jesus. And they began to do this. But there was this couple. And they sold some of their land. And the land was theirs to sell anyway, but they decided they were going to sell their property. And so they sold their property, and they come to the pastor. And they say, the husband comes to the pastor and he says, Pastor, I've sold this piece of property, and I want to give you the proceeds from that. The pastor kind of looks at him funny because, here's the thing. Word travels, right? You sell a piece of property, and people know how much you got for it. It's just the way that it works. So they sell this piece of property, and he comes to the pastor, and he says, Pastor, I want to give all the money that we got from the selling of this property, and I want to give it to the church so that we can help those who are in need. The pastor looks at him and says, Really? That's all you got for it? Yeah, that's it. Here it is. Dead. He falls over dead on the ground because why? He lied. Shortly thereafter, his wife shows up and says, Yes, Pastor, this is all the money that we got from the selling of the land. And the pastor looks him in the eye and he says, Just as the men who are carrying the dead, lifeless body out of your husband out the back door today, you will soon follow because you have lied. Dead. Now, we've probably heard that story before, right? That's the story of Ananias and Sapphira. They had sold a piece of land, and they were giving of all of their funds to help people in need. You know when this happened? At the very inception of the church. But the question we need to ask ourselves is, why? It happened because God takes lying seriously. I said this morning. You know what the American way is? The American way is lying, cheating, and stealing to take the step up that you want to take. The problem is that, it's not just about lying. Lying seems to be a way of life for so many. See, we lie at the drop of a hat. But it's much more about just lying. It's about our hearts. The book, The Day America Told the Truth, says that 91% of those people surveyed, they lie routinely about what they consider to be trivial matters. 91%. Think about that. Okay? We probably got about 150 people in here. Okay? So that means that 15 of you would tell the truth. Okay? Monty, did I do the math right? Yep, okay. Had to check. He's like, yes, he got a math problem right in church. 36% people lie about matters that are important. 86% of people, of students, say they regularly lie to their parents. 86%. 75% of people said that they frequently lie to their friends. 73% say they regularly lie to their siblings. And this was the one that just blew my mind. 69% of people say they regularly lie to their spouse. So why is it that we make such a small thing out of something that God makes so big? Well, let's look at what Exodus chapter 20, verse 16 says first to start out. This is what it says. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. Okay? In other words, you shouldn't lie about others or yourself. Don't lie. We need to see that God was trying to tell the people that this lying thing is a big deal. We seem to be willing as people to lie about just about anything, right? I mean, we lie about our weight. If I were to pull your wallet out today and get your driver's license out and put a scale here on the front of the stage, would your driver's license tell the truth? Everybody's like, man, come on. We lie about our weight, right? We lie about our height. Yeah. I always have wanted to be 6 foot tall. Okay? So I always say that I'm 6 feet tall with a pair of high heels on and the wind blowing in the right direction. We lie about our income. If you're a golfer, you always lie about your handicap. If you're a fisherman, you always lie about the size of your fish. It was this big. Right? And we all lie about our waist size. Oftentimes we lie to ourselves about our waist size. I can get these on. They will fit. We lie about our kids' success. We even have a tendency to lie about our past. And I'm going to be honest with you right now. We are in the biggest season of lying that our nation sees. Every 4 years. We're not going to get into that one today, because that could be an entire series of sermons. But we lie. We lie to impress. And most often we lie to impress people that we don't really like anyway, right? We lie to get revenge. We lie to make profit. We lie to escape punishment. We call them things like excuses. We call them things like, well, it's just a little exaggeration. Just a little, because it doesn't really hurt anybody, right? But I'm sure that no one in here has ever done that. I know I haven't. Wait, I just did. People will often say something negative. Have you ever heard a story about somebody and you twist a little piece of it because you don't really want them to look as good as they do in that story? Another word for that's called gossip. And we go to the right person. We know that person that's going to tell the story to a bunch of different other people. Remember the old telephone game you used to play as a kid? You tell a story here, and at the end, it's not even close. See, we lie. Maybe it's not that we just bold-faced lie, but we're not fully honest. Have you ever gotten caught up in trying to find the truth in a story? As many of you know, I have 3 children. Okay? And don't you know that every time something happens at home, it's always the other person's fault? You got those at home? Anybody have? Yeah? Okay. And then somewhere in the middle, you hope to find the truth. Right? That's the way it works. Well, the truth of the matter is this. That's just lying. We do that to try and save face. And the truth of the matter is, most of the time that we lie is for self-preservation. We don't want to tell the truth because I don't want to tell everybody that I weigh 200 pounds. I don't want to tell everybody I only make that many dollars. No, I wasn't a star athlete in high school, but I could tell everybody I was because I don't even live in the same state that we used to. The writer of Proverbs has a lot to say about lying and how God feels about it. These are all going to appear on your screen, okay? Proverbs 6:16 through 19 says this. There are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him. Haughty eyes, a what? Lying tongue. Hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a what? False witness, who pours out lies, and a person who stirs up conflict in the community. I see twice in there that God talks about lying. Proverbs 10:18 says this, whoever conceals hatred with lying lips and spreads slander is a fool. Proverbs 19:9 says this, a false witness will not go unpunished, and whoever pulls out lies will what? Perish. They will die. Proverbs 24:28, do not testify against your neighbor without cause. Would you use your lips to mislead? So why is it that we have made lying such a non-issue? I mean, that's a good question, right? Why do you think it is that we have made lying such a non-issue? Is it because we really don't believe that lying hurts anybody? Or is it because we struggle to understand what lying really says about our lives in Jesus? I think that really has something more to do with it. God's word is very specific about lying, but it doesn't just stop there. Truth-telling and lying are about character. And write this down. Character matters in the kingdom. Character matters in the kingdom. Now, let's be honest. Have you ever told someone a lie or a half-truth because you didn't want to hurt their feelings? Maybe it goes something like this. Hey, honey, does this dress make my butt look big? And we do what? Well, I don't want to get into that one. That's a marital dispute. Hey, didn't I do a good job on this? How was dinner? See, we lie because we want to protect people, right? I think maybe the truth of the matter is this. I think maybe we lie because we don't want people to know how we really feel. And that sounds good in theory. But the problem is this. The truth always finds you out. In Matthew chapter 12, Jesus speaks specifically about this. Listen to what he says. But I tell you that everyone will have to give account on the day of judgment for every empty word they have spoken. For by your words you will be acquitted, and by your words you will be condemned. That doesn't sound easy, does it? It sounds kind of hard. I mean, if we were really talk about that, that sounds really hard. Does it make you stop for a minute maybe and think about the fact that I'll have to give an account for every word I've ever spoken? And then you start to ask yourself, but what does lying have to do with character? Again, Jesus speaks to this very specifically. I want to encourage you, if you have your Bibles, I want you to open up to Matthew chapter 15. Matthew chapter 15. If you got your phones, you can mark stuff in your phones too. Okay? Matthew chapter 15. Jesus just gives us this smack upside the head. Listen to what he says. For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, and slander. These are what defiles a person, but eating with unwashed hands does not defile them. See, this is when Jesus was beginning to teach those who are listening to him that it's not about the food that you eat that makes you unclean. It's about what goes on in your heart that makes you unclean. It's about the words that come out of your mouth that make you unclean. See, we need to be willing to see that what comes out of us is what shows who we really are. We had a funny conversation this morning as we were preparing to get ready for band practice this morning. We started talking about the food we like to eat. I love shrimp. As you can probably tell, I love just about all food. But I love shrimp. And some other people are like, oh, that is so nasty. I mean, do you know what shrimp eat? See, the truth of the matter is this. It's not about what goes in us that makes us unclean. It's about what goes on in our hearts and what comes out of us that defines our cleanliness. We need to be willing to see that what comes out of us is what shows who we are. Jesus himself said in Luke 6 that out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. So if we're speaking falsehood, if we're lying, what does that say about us? But don't just sit there and think there's no hope, because the fact of the matter is there is hope. And while it may seem like this could be a hard fix to stop lying, and in fact, it's really, really easy. Are you ready to know how to fix the struggle of lying? Does anybody want to know how to fix it? It's really, really simple. Anybody in here want to know how to not lie? Just raise your hand. Come on. All you kids needed, yeah. You tell the truth always. It's real simple. It's real simple to not lie. You tell the truth always. Have you ever met a person and you're just not quite sure what they tell you is the truth because you've caught them in a lie before? I've met some people in my life. When I was a little kid, I used to struggle with this. I'll tell you straight up. I used to tell lies. I'm sure that many of us in this room probably can attest to this. I remember one time lying, we broke a window playing baseball. And we tried to lie our way out of it. Here's the problem with lying. It doesn't typically stop at one. Because we lie, okay, right? And then what do we have to do? Well, we have to lie to cover up that lie, right? And then we got to come back later and we got to lie to cover up this lie to cover up that covered up that lie. And then a little bit later, we got to lie again to cover up this lie that covered up this lie that covered up this lie. And what happens? Eventually, as my dad used to say, you just got your lies mixed up. You're busted. You ever been there? We've all probably struggled with this. But if we tell the truth always, we don't have to worry about lying. We don't have to keep the facts straight because the facts are the facts, and that's what we've told them. In Ephesians chapter 4, it says this, "Therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are all members of one body." James 4:11 says this, "Brothers and sisters, do not slander one another. Anyone who speaks against a brother or sister or judges them speaks against the law and judges it. When you judge the law, you are not keeping it, but sitting in judgment on it." In James 5:12 it says this, "Above all, my brothers and sisters, do not swear, not by heaven or by earth or by anything else. All you need is a simple yes or no. Otherwise you will be condemned." I sometimes get Facebook invitations to go to events. I don't know if anybody in here has ever gotten those. Okay? But you struggle because you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. So you get this Facebook invitation and you know that you're not going to go, right? But what do you click? Maybe. Is it just me? Am I the only one? I see a couple like, yeah, I've been there. Okay? Well, why don't you just click the truth? No, I'm not coming. Why not? Because I don't want to. You been there? No, I don't want to go to Aunt Ethel's dog party. I'm sorry. It just doesn't sound like fun. Okay? But we click maybe. Why? Because we don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. You know, something I've learned long ago is that I would rather tell the truth and be honest, knowing that it may hurt somebody's feelings, but them at least to understand that I love them enough to tell them the truth. Titus 3:1-2 says this, "Remind the people to be subjects to rulers and authorities, to be obedient, to be ready to do whatever is good, to slander no one, to be peaceable and considerate, and always to be gentle toward everyone." See, if we tell the truth always, we will never have to worry about keeping our story straight or looking like someone that we are not. Abraham Lincoln says this, "No man has a good enough memory to make a successful liar." Adrian Rogers, preacher, he says this. This is true about the church. See, the truth is, I think sometimes in the church, we don't tell the full truth because we're afraid we're going to hurt somebody's feelings. Or we're afraid that maybe somebody might not like the decisions that we've made. But listen to what Adrian Rogers says. He says this, "It is better to be divided by the truth than to be united in error. It is better to speak the truth that hurts and then heals than falsehood that comforts and then kills. It is not love and it is not friendship if we fail to declare the whole counsel of God. It is better to be hated for telling the truth than to be loved for telling a lie. It is impossible to find anyone in the Bible who ever was a power for God, who did not have enemies and was not hated. It's better to stand alone with the truth than to be wrong with a multitude. It is better to ultimately succeed with the truth than to temporarily succeed with a lie." I read a story this last week of a gentleman who was a meteorologist in a large network up north. And he wanted to be a meteorologist his whole life. That's what his desire was. He loved weather. He loved chasing storms. He loved being on top of things. And so he knew that he needed to have a degree. Here's the problem. He applied for a job at this big network and he lied about the degree that he received. But they didn't ever go check because they thought, well, people are typically honest. So they didn't go check to see if he actually had this degree. So he thought, I'm scot-free. I got the job. 10 years later, they get an anonymous email from someone that says, you might ought to go check out this guy's pedigree because I don't think he ever even graduated from college. Sure enough, they went and checked it out, and the college he said he attended, never went to it. The degree he said he received, he never got it. He lost his job. Why? Because he allowed a lie to try and become his truth. And when we allow lies to become our truth, we're always going to end up getting caught. Why is it that the truth is so hard? I think it's because of this. It is because the truth is of God. And lies are of the enemy. And the enemy is fighting at all cost to keep us from telling the truth. But I think it goes even further than that. The enemy is fighting at all cost to keep us from living in the truth. And why is it? Why is it that this happens? Why is it that Satan is so good at deceiving us, teaching us to lie? In John 8:44 it says this, you belong to your father the devil. He's talking to a group of people who have been lying and deceiving. He says this, you belong to your father the devil and you want to carry out your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. And when he lies, he speaks his native tongue, for he is a liar and the father of lies. See, the truth of the matter is this, church. Satan has been lying from the beginning of time, and he's good at it. Why do you think he got the name the liar? You don't just get a name the liar because you're bad at it. I mean, consider the heavens before the earth was created. Consider what happened. Satan was such a good liar that he deceived 1/3 of the angels in heaven to follow him instead of God. As they stood in the presence of God, the Creator, the Almighty God, Satan deceived them, 1/3 of the angels, into believing that he was more powerful. So if he can deceive 1/3 of the angels that stand in the presence of God, don't you think he can deceive you and I as well? And he's probably pretty good at it. But the thing we have to do is this. If we want to be of Jesus, then we have to be of the truth. And the bottom line is this. When we have a life of truth and honesty, we show the world who God is and the difference he can make in a life lived for him. When we live a life of truth and honesty, we show the world who God is and the difference he can make in living in a life lived for him. See, here's something that we have to understand. Lying really never gets you anywhere. We've got to start telling the truth. And this is hard. In today's society, this is a struggle. Because in the world, there's no such thing as absolute truth anymore. If you believe it's true, then it must be true for you. You ever heard that? If you believe it's true, then it must be true for you. And we've allowed the enemy to deceive us. We've allowed the enemy to deceive us that marrying someone of the same sex is okay. We've allowed the enemy to deceive us that killing children in utero is okay. And we get crazy over a stupid monkey. We are created in the image of God. We've allowed the world to deceive us into believing that having more is really more, when the truth of the matter is being generous is what really shows the life of a follower of Christ. We've allowed ourselves to be deceived. And it's time that we begin to live in the truth. And you want to know the truth? The truth is this: Jesus loved you unto death. Jesus loved you to death. And he loves you every single day. And the truth is, he always will. See, Dave Weinbaum says this: being truthful when you know it will cost you is the true test of honesty. Have you ever had to tell somebody the truth knowing that it will hurt? And the truth of the matter is this, is if we are in Christ, then we should crave honesty and truth. It should be our calling card. When we tell somebody that that's the way that it is, they should believe us because we are God's people. 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, it says this: therefore rid yourselves of all malice and all deceit, hypocrisy, envy, and slander of every kind. Like newborn babes crave pure spiritual milk, so that by it you may grow up in your salvation, now that you have tasted that the Lord is good. Peter's telling us to crave truth. Don't live for the lie. Crave the truth. And the truth is this: yes, there is sin in the world. And yes, there is a heaven and there's a hell. But here's the bigger truth. The bigger truth is this: Jesus loved you enough to die for you. And he wants you to receive that gift of salvation that he's offered to anyone who is willing to call upon his name. So how do we do this? We live in the truth. And we accept the truth that came as a man. In John chapter 14, verse 6, it says this: Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me. He is truth. We don't have to live for the lies. We can live for the truth. We don't have to believe what the world tells us is the perfect way to live. Because guess what? It's all going to burn someday. And the only thing that's going to matter when the end of the world happens is if whether or not we have a relationship with the truth, with Jesus, and we've yielded our lives to him. See, when we live in the truth, we will be known by the Father. The truth is not only an attribute of God, it is his character, and it should be ours as well. The challenge today is very, very simple, yet very, very hard. See, Jesus talks a lot about in the New Testament that once we were ignorant, but when we know the truth, it's time to start living in it. Once we didn't have the knowledge to understand, but now we do. And so the truth is this: you may struggle with lying. But now, because you know the truth, it's time to change. It's time to be different. Remember the old slogan at Dairy Queen, different is good? It is. Let's be different. Let's let the world see something different. This morning, we're going to sing our song of decision. And I know for some of you in here today, this has probably been something hard to hear, because you may be in a job that somewhat honors lying. There's some jobs that honor lying. And you may be living in a world like that, and it honors you to lie. But I want to offer you something better. Live in truth. And the truth is, Jesus loved you enough to die. He just simply wants you to come and yield your life to him. We want to invite you. We're going to sing this song. If you need someone to pray with you today, we want to encourage you to come, and maybe you kneel at these front chairs or these front steps, and we would love to pray with you. Or maybe this morning you simply say this: I've never accepted the truth. I've been lying to myself, telling myself I can make it all on my own, that I can do this. And the truth is, you can't, not without Jesus. So maybe today you need to come forward and say, Jesus, I want to make you the boss of my life. Or maybe this morning you want to come and you want to lock arms and say, I just want to go where we're going as a body, and I want to join, and I want to be a part of the fellowship of First Christian Church. Or maybe this morning you just simply need to come by yourself and you need to pray and you need to ask God to forgive you.